The indictment was issued by a grand jury of citizens here in the District of Columbia, and it sets forth the crimes charged in detail. I encourage everyone to read it in full. The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. The men and women of law enforcement who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th are heroes. They are patriots and they are the very best of us. They did not just defend a building or the people sheltering in it. They put their lives on the line to defend who we are as a country and as a people. They defended the very institutions and principles that define the United States. Since the attack on our Capitol, the Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day. This case is brought consistent with that commitment, and our investigation of other individuals continues. In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens. In the meantime, I must emphasize that the indictment is only an allegation and that the defendant must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. I would like to thank the members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation who are working on this investigation with my office, as well as the many career prosecutors and law enforcement agents from around the country who have worked on previous January 6th investigations. These women and men are public servants of the very highest order, and it is a privilege to work alongside them. Thank you.
Why didn't you charge any of the other co-conspirators?
All right, Jack Smith making a brief statement in which he said the indictment today is charging former President Donald Trump with defrauding the United States and disenfranchising voters. He said the attack on our nation's capital was an unprecedented assault on democracy, fueled by the lies of the defendant. He once again, as he did the first time when he first indicted the former president, promised to pursue a speedy trial and urged everybody that every defendant is innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. He talked, let's get back to the unindicted co-conspirators, because we heard that was the one question that was sort of somebody called out as Jack Smith left the podium. In this indictment, there appears to be plenty of evidence that other people were working right alongside former President Trump in working to overturn the election. And obviously putting together these slates of false electors in the various states, as well as the pressure campaign to Vice President Pence not to certify Joe Biden's victory in the Senate that day. Why would they not be indicted along with him?
It just takes time, Elizabeth, because part of it is the back channel communications that may be taking place with these unindicted co-conspirators. There might be plea deals that are happening. And yes, and Jesse, that's a point well taken. You may not need the co-conspirators, but you'll need the co-conspirators if you have a full jury trial. You need a unanimous vote by 12 jurors in that box with some alternates. So at the end of the day, you need to convince these jurors that, yes, the president was guilty of these charges, and using testimony from these co-conspirators, these unindicted ones, will certainly be very compelling. Now, will they ultimately be indicted? If you're going to use these unindicted co-conspirators as key witnesses, as a federal prosecutor, you need to be very careful, because at that point, their testimony is tainted. You have individuals that have already been indicted, and in order to get a favorable outcome for their separate indictment that's not brought to trial and not brought to bear yet, they're going to give testimony. So there's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes.
And he did just say the investigation continues. There may be further charges, and we've already seen that he did that in the documents case.
Right. They might be building more stronger cases against the unindicted co-conspirators. But when we say that term, it's very important to remember what we're saying. When we talk about a conspiracy, there has to be an agreement, meaning Trump had to agree with at least one of these people or two of these people in order to do what he's accused of doing. And that agreement, there has to be a meeting of the minds. They have to have a common purpose. Someone had to take a step in further evidence. So as strong as this case is, it is built on the foundation of those co-conspirators. So right now, they are the most important part, in my opinion, of this indictment. And they're going to be very careful before they initially bring charges against any of them. This is a sting. This has shocked everybody. Maybe not, I mean, we knew this was coming out. But now it becomes the question, what does he do with them moving forward against the case with Donald Trump?
All right. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.